Please welcome Toastmasters. Toastmaster Nisha Shivram, how to craft a winning speech. How to craft a winning speech, Toastmaster Nisha Shivram.
Excited?
Yes.
How many of you are really excited? For what? Listen to me?
Yes.
Or honestly, to know the tips and tricks of crafting a winning speech?
Both.
Now, who is the president of this club?
The two presidents.
Okay, you need to pay me for this. Because see, I can see that there are a lot of competent contestants sitting here, okay, who have especially come to take the tips and tricks. I will be sharing it. But do you think that you can trust me, whatever I'm doing, I'm honestly sharing everything with you?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So Toastmaster of the day, fellow Toastmasters, wonderful guests, good evening.
Good evening.
What is a winning speech, you may ask? From my experience, any speech can be a winning speech if it meets certain elements. Now we need to understand what are those elements. So this session is all about how to craft a winning speech. The very first thing that we all need to focus on is to have a universal message. So what is meant by a universal message? It is all about a universal topic. Okay? So any topic that everybody, no matter which part of the world they come from, they should be able to connect with. Now there are certain topics which are very common probably in our country, in our locality, but when it moves beyond our locality, people may not be able to connect with that. So we need to find topics where everybody, whether a small kid or an 80-year-old person, should be able to connect with it. So it can be topics that are more emotional in nature. So it can be about love, challenges, failures, right? Hatred, jealousy. I had given a speech on jealousy a few years back when I had narrated a story that as a teenager, once when I went to school, my classmate brought a red bag. And I looked at the bag and I got so jealous that I decided to do something. So during the break, I took out the scissors and I cut the straps of the bag. Now the lesson that I learned there is that you cannot get what you envy. You get what you earn. So if you like something, if you desire something, you have to work hard for it. Whether it's a red bag or trophies or anything that you desire for. Okay? So that ultimately turned into a message and into a speech. So the key point here is to have a universal message. Second thing is always to share a personal experience or a personal story. Now the question here is, why a personal story? Why do you have to share a personal story? Connects with whom? Okay, what else?
You can
reflect the emotions. Authentic.
Okay, authenticity. How do you know, or how will you measure the authenticity? How do you know that the speaker is actually narrating a real story?
Reflection.
Is there any criteria to measure the authenticity? No. And I always tell my students that if you do not have a story, you can make it up. Why not? Nobody is going to check and see whether the story you share from your life is true or not. The problem starts when you share a fact, and when you give a wrong fact, people can go back and check. But the beauty of personal experiences are that nobody can check. Is it not? Right? So always share a personal stories, because it makes your speech interesting. It makes your speech memorable. People will always remember your speech because of the story you shared. Now the question here is, will I be able to connect with my audience with the story I shared? Maybe yes, maybe no. Because your story is your unique story. Whatever has happened with you may not have happened with me. So if you have 100 people sitting here and you share a story about the red bag, how many of you have actually had that sort of experience? Maybe one or two, maybe none. Okay, so please remember that especially when it comes to a contest and you share a personal experience, do not think that I'm going to connect with the audience with that story, because you cannot. Go back to the World Championship speeches. Okay, and I always give an example of my speech, that how many of you have experienced somebody coming to you at the airport and asking for a card? How many of you have attempted triathlon? Right? So we cannot connect with the story. However, people will connect with the message that you want to convey. And that is where you should be focusing on. So people can always connect with the message that I shared, that whatever you have, you can help people with that without expecting anything in return. So when the world champion Toastmaster Jocelyn said that in life we get into situations where we get stuck, where our mind says yes, heart says no. We all have been there. We can connect with that message. Okay? So it is not the story, it is the message that people connect with. So focus on giving a proper connecting message to your audience. And last thing, and the most important thing in the winning speech, to craft a winning speech, is to see whether your speech meets the judging criteria or not. If it ticks all the boxes in the content and language, I'm not touching the delivery part, the content and language. Okay, so let us start with language. 20 marks. Easy to get those 20 marks. Now many people think the moment they think international, now all of a sudden something happens in them and they turn international. So their way of speaking changes. Their accent will change, their words will change. Okay? Please understand, you do not have to have a fake accent. Because you are going to the global stage and everybody would be coming from the US or the UK, you do not have to roll your R's, okay, and to have a fake accent there. You can speak the way you speak. But what is important here are the two elements in the language criteria. One is the appropriateness. What does that mean? Appropriateness means the words that you are using, it should be first appropriate to the speech that you have chosen. Second, appropriate to the audience you're speaking to. So appropriateness to the speech means, let's say I'm giving a speech on artificial intelligence. I need to use words that would do justice to this particular topic, artificial intelligence. But at the same time, you should not be using a lot of technical words, because your words should be able to, it should be understood by the people sitting here. So if somebody who's a non-technical person sitting here, and if I use a lot of jargons, and if they do not understand it, then there will be a problem. Okay? So when I gave my speech on marathon in the semi-finals, it was all about running a race. Now here in Qatar, we say 10 kilometers or 22 kilometers marathon. There, it is all miles. So if I use kilometers there on the global stage, there are chances probably the audience may not understand what kilometers is she talking about, especially the judges who are coming from the US. I'm not worried about other people, I'm worried about the judges. Okay, so if they do not understand, if they do not differentiate what kilometers and miles, then I'm in trouble. So I have to use, change and use miles in my speech. At the same time, the miles or the kilometers should do justice to the marathon speech, because it was about running. I should be using these terms. Same with my swipe speech. Here, when I was speaking, I had the currency in riyals. Okay, so when I said that we swiped the card, it was riyals. But when I reached there, I realized that many people may not understand what riyals are. Okay, whether it is Saudi riyal or Qatari riyal. Qatar, anyway, they don't know where Qatar is. Okay, now they know because of the World Cup. Otherwise, so then I had to change it in pounds and dollars. But at the same time, it should do justice with my speech using a card, swiping it, the currency. So it is dollars and pounds. So this is how you have to look at the speech and see whether the words are appropriate both for the speech and for the audience. Then comes correctness. Correctness is all about, number one, your correct pronunciation. As I said, when it comes to international speech, people get into this international mode and they just want to prove their linguistic ability to the audience without understanding that in Toastmasters, members come from, especially from those countries where the first language is not English. So if you try to use complicated words, big vocabulary, big words, you're done. In 2012, when I first went for my district contest, here I impressed people with the language I used. People were like, wow! Now I realize none of them understood. They just got impressed by the words and the language, and they just 20 out of 20. But when I went there, unfortunately, most of the judges were Arabic. And they could not understand certain words. And they scored me low in language. And they came to me and said, Nisha, you performed well, but we did not understand what you said. Okay? So I got very low marks in the language section. So it is very important to understand that your audience is different. It's not about you, it's about them. They should be able to understand. It took me years to realize that fact. Okay, so your language should be simple and easy. So use short words, short sentences. When I say short sentences, it should be within 10 words, and short paragraphs, because then it will be easy for you to memorize and also easy for your audience, judges, to understand and follow. And it will also be easy for you to pronounce. Now, if you use a complicated words, and if you do not pronounce it correctly, the entire meaning of that sentence would change. And you don't have to go far, okay? Don't have to go into complicated words. Let me give you a simple example. content. How will you pronounce it?
Content.
Huh?
Content.
Some would say content, some would say content. Okay? Now there are two pronunciations for the same word with the same spelling. Content, when you say, it's the script or the material that you're presenting. So it's your, the content that you have. Content can be a verb and an adjective that says satisfied or satisfying. So if you use it in a wrong way, pronounce it in a wrong way, the entire meaning will change. Okay? So you have to be very careful of the pronunciation and the usage of words. Now the question here is, if I keep my words simple, how can I impress my audience? Right? People would think that, oh, she's using such simple language, she does not know English. How can I impress? And that is where we need to use something called rhetorical devices. It is also known as poetic devices. Okay, it's English grammar. So what are these poetic devices that we can use in our speeches? Number one is simile. Have you heard of simile?
Yes.
Yeah. Similes are the words that we use to compare somebody's quality with something else. Okay? How can you identify a simile? In similes we use like or as. So she runs as fast as Usain Bolt. Okay? He is as cool as a cucumber. These are all similes. We are comparing these qualities with an object or with somebody else. So these are similes. The second rhetorical device that we can use is a metaphor. The difference between metaphor and similes, that in metaphors we do a direct comparison, we do not use like or as. Okay? So if I have to use the same sentence that she runs as fast as Usain Bolt, convert it into a metaphor, how will we do that? She is the Usain Bolt of my family. Same thing, different way of saying. Okay, so when I used that, we all have one card in our wallet. The card of contacts and connections. The card of our expertise and experience. So these are all metaphors. Okay, so I used card as a metaphor. And in normal daily life, we use metaphor like time is money. Life is a roller coaster ride. Okay, so this is how you can beautify your speech. The third rhetorical device that we can use is alliteration, the simple one. Alliteration is the repetition of the same letter in a sentence or the same sound. So when I say awesome Abhijit, okay, so A, I'm repeating the letter A, naughty Nisha, many happy returns of the day. These are all alliterations. When I say card of connections and contacts, K, right? C. It's all repetition. And with the same sound, when I say rascal, Pascal, it's the same sound. These are all alliterations. And simple is the simplest one to use. You can use it when you're describing somebody or describing an object. And the last rhetorical device that you can and you must use, because it also adds to the rule of 3 in speech, is known as triad. Triad, 3. Tri means 3. So it's a group of 3 words or a group of 3 sentences. So when I say, I was sad, shocked, shattered, 3 words. And at the same time, alliteration, because it repeats S. Okay, when I say, it's my life, it's my destiny, it's my fate, group of 3 sentences. Okay, and it adds to the rule of 3 in speech. In speeches, we say that always follow this rule of 3. So every time you move, 3 stories. Every time you do something, 3. Okay, so when you use triads, it actually adds to it. And this is how you can make your speech beautiful, keeping it simple. Simple words, but with the help of rhetorical devices, it becomes beautiful. And that is where you will score high in the choice of words in the language category. Easy?
Yes.
Easy?
Very much easy.
Yeah, it would come with practice. You have to practice it literally with every speech. Now let's go back to the most important section in the judging criteria, that is your content, which carries 50 marks. Again, it is divided into 3 parts. It's your speech development, speech effectiveness, and speech value. Let us talk about speech development. How can we develop a speech? Before I explain that, I want to understand, we have so many experienced Toastmasters contestants here. When you get an opportunity to write a speech, what is that first thing that you start with?
In opening.
Very good. Opening.
What I want my audience to take in the end.
Message. Okay.
I would prefer the audience to be engaged and interested
Okay.
about the speech.
Okay. So what will you start with? Yes. Curiosity, that will come in the opening part. That is where you build up the curiosity. Wrong. The moment you decide to write a speech, be it for a contest or for anything else, you have to start with the center part. If you are following the structure of the speech, we have the opening, we have the body of the speech, and we have the conclusion. We should always start with the body of the speech. Forget the opening, forget the conclusion. So what are you going to do in the body of the speech? You have a story in your mind, write it down. I would say dump it down. Okay? Don't worry about the word count. Don't worry about your language at the beginning. Do not try to fix anything in the beginning. The rough draft should be that simple story that you have in your mind. Write it down. After writing it down, now you need to look at few important elements of that story. Number one is conflict. What is conflict? Conflict means a problem, a challenge, a disagreement. It can be anything that the speaker or the narrator is going through. Okay? Now remember, everybody sitting here is going through a certain problem. Psychological, correct? So now you have to see what is the conflict am I addressing in my speech. So once you write down everything, take a separate piece of paper and write down the conflict in my speech. You should be able to define the conflict properly. If you are not defining it properly, your audience will get confused. Okay, so first write down what is the conflict am I defining here. So in my speech, swipe, the conflict was, I had the card, but I didn't want to help. So it was my mentality not to help the other person. That was the conflict I was addressing. That was the problem I was addressing. Now when you present the conflict to the audience, you also have to provide a solution. You just cannot leave the audience with the problem, because they are also sitting with the same problem. Now they want to know what is the solution. Please give me a solution, right? I'm also a person with the mentality, I don't want to help people. What should I do? Somebody would be sitting there and thinking. So now you have to give them the solution. So next to your conflict, you have to write down what is the solution to my conflict. Now remember, the solution should be something that you have worked upon, applied in your life. It should not come out magically, that one day you realize that I have to help somebody. No. Okay, if you have heard my Dream Safari speech, okay, it was a story of a small kid going on a safari to see a tiger in a jungle. I particularly did not do anything there. Okay, the tiger just came out of the hiding out of nowhere. It was magical. What is the solution? I did not give any solution. And that is where the speech failed, because I did not have a proper solution for the audience. So the audience sitting there is, okay, yes, I have a dream, and I can understand that the child was positive, but you, speaker, Nisha Shivram, what did you do to achieve your dream? I was not able to convince the audience with the solution. So solution should be something that you have worked upon, you have applied. Clear? Once you give the solution to your audience, so now the audience they are thinking, okay, great solution. You worked on it. What is the result? Without the result, you cannot convince them. Okay? So the result part is what we call the transformation. So my problem was I was hesitant to help. The solution was that I realized and I started helping people. Okay? I started thinking about people who helped me. I was guilty. And then the transformation was, the next time when I got down in Nashville, I started helping people without expecting anything in return. Unless and until I tell the audience that I did it, nobody is going to believe me, or it will be difficult for me to prove my credibility as a speaker. Okay, so transformation is very, very important. So these are the three elements that you need to first fix. What is the conflict in my speech? What is the solution am I providing to the audience? And what is the transformation that happened in my life? Okay. Now once this is set, you need to look into other elements of the speech or the story that can make the story interesting. So what else can make the story interesting? Characters. So now you have to see what are the important, prominent characters in my speech. Please remember, do not confuse your audience with a lot of characters. You know, just because I want to play with my voice, there are speakers who would do that. I would change my voice here, I would change my voice here, I would change my voice here, so let me have 5 different characters. No. 1 or 2 prominent characters that have played an important role in your story. It can be a positive character, it can be a negative character, you have to decide. It can be a living character like you and I. It can be a non-living character like that washing machine in my speech. It can be a lectern or a mic or a laptop. Okay, but that character should have a prominent role in your story. Now, when you have a character, to make it even more interesting, you have to describe that character so that your audience visualize. Because all you have is it's just words. Okay, you're not showing a picture, you do not have images unless you use a PowerPoint presentation, which we all actually avoid in speech contests, right? So you have to use descriptive language to describe this character in terms of physical appearance and personality. So how was this character? Tall, short, thin, fat. He used to wear a red t-shirt, blue jeans, silver shoes. He was kind, rude, arrogant. Okay, so physical appearance and personality traits. Let's make it even more interesting by adding dialogues. Okay, now this is where you can play with humor, you can play with drama, you can add emotions. So if you have humorous dialogues, definitely your speech will be funny, right? If you have some emotional dialogues, you can make your audience cry or whatever. Depends on what kind of a dialogue you have. Again, remember, not more than 3 dialogues, otherwise your speech will look like a drama. It's a speech. But then those dialogues should be effective dialogues, something that people would always remember. So when the coach said arigato, okay, people remember. When my mother said that you get what you earn and not what you envy, okay, that turns into a message, it's an effective dialogue. Okay, so please remember, not more than 3 dialogues. Once all these things are set in your story, take a small piece of paper and write down the message in 10 words. If you cannot write down your message in 10 words, let me tell you, your audience will never get the message. Just in 10 words, you have to write down the message. Now, you may use this particular sentence throughout your speech and make it a foundational phrase. We worked a lot harder during the finals to bring down that message in just 1 word, swipe. It took us so many months and sittings to do that. Okay, so you have to come down with simple, short message that everybody, after listening to your speech, they should remember. So write down the message. Now it's your turn to write the introduction and conclusion. So based on that message, you will write the introduction. Before you write the introduction, you should know what is the objective of an introduction. There are only 2 objectives. Number 1 is to tell the audience what you are going to talk about. And number 2, get their attention immediately. Unfortunately, human mind, the attention span of a human mind is just 8 seconds. If you can get their attention within those 8 seconds, you have your audience with you. Again, unfortunately, with all these mobile phones and social media platforms, it has even reduced. So now it's your responsibility as a speaker to give them something to be glued to your speech every 6 to 8 seconds. It can be humor, it can be drama, it can be your movement, your pauses, something where the audience would say, wow, what did she do just now? They should be glued to your speech, okay? So introduction is all about getting the attention of your audience in the very beginning. And how can you do that? Number 1, by asking a question. Easiest way to get the attention is to ask a question. Number 2, if you're good, somebody like her, then you can crack a joke and get the attention of the audience, right? 3rd, you can have a shocking fact, something that they are not aware of. You can make it up and get the attention of your audience, like how Muhammad Katani did. Yeah? You can sing or dance and get the attention of your audience. Or you can simply use a part of your story, as he said, to build curiosity in the beginning and get the attention of your audience. But here you must remember, whichever introduction you want to use, it should be very well connected with the story and the message. Just because Nisha Shivram said you can sing, you're just coming up with a random song that has got nothing to do with your speech. It happened. I did a workshop in Kerala and I said, sir, you can sing. And this gentleman came and sang. And then he started off his speech. Absolutely nothing to do with what he sang. Okay? So it happens. So you have to be careful, because then the transitions would be clear to the audience. Again, when I'm using this word audience in a contest, your audience are your judges. Please, don't worry about impressing others. Do not worry about making a difference in other people's life, because in a contest speech, you cannot do that. Nobody has ever done that. It's simple, it's a contest. Like any other contest, why are you going there in a contest? To give your best shot, to do better than other contestants, and to win. That should be your mindset, not to make a difference in other people's life. Just because I help somebody, nobody is going to help others with their cards. Just because Jocelyn ran, swam, cycled, nobody is going to do it. Okay, so just be clear about that. Okay, so all these introductions should be very well connected with your speech, your topic, and your message. So your introduction is set. Now comes the conclusion. Let me remind you, in a contest, no offense to the judges, conclusion is the most important part in a speech, because that is where your judges will wake up all of a sudden, because you have 10 contestants and all of them are brilliant speeches, content wise, very heavy content. That is where they will wake up, just to see how powerful the conclusion is. So you need to have a very powerful, crisp, clear conclusion, that where you can connect with the audience. So once your story ends, now it is your responsibility to connect with the audience. See, as I said, you cannot connect with the story. So here is your opportunity to connect. How will you connect? So in the conclusion, normally you can follow this formula. You can pick 3 scenarios from everybody's life. It can be 3 statements or 3 examples. Okay? So when I talk about washing machine, I asked everybody, I gave these scenarios to everybody, that this noise can be your child crying all the time. Or this noise can be your spouse complaining all the time. This noise can be your parents sending you messages day and night. So 3 different scenarios where people can connect. And then I asked a question, are you listening to the noises around you? So this is how you have to connect. So you can bring 3 scenarios from other people's life. You can put it in a question format, or you can put it in a statement format, but people should feel connected with what you're saying. So once that connection is set, that is where you are going to elaborate your message. Don't get confused when I say elaborate. Just 2 to 3 sentences, not more than that. The moment you start explaining your message, your judge will start scoring you minus and negative, and so make it crisp but to the point. Even if you don't say anything, when I ended my speech, just by doing, okay, so it was very well understood. You can do that. You have to make it impactful and powerful, and just spreading the message across. So this is how you're going to set the conclusion. So the speech development is set. Now comes the effectiveness and value. In effectiveness and value, I would suggest you to ask 2 questions to yourself. In effectiveness, that how interesting is my speech? Or is my speech interesting enough to hold the attention of the audience from the beginning till the end? Which means you need to have humor, you need to have drama, you need to have emotions, you need to have a powerful message. That is how you're going to get the attention of your audience throughout the speech. And second thing is, what do I want my audience to do after I finish my speech? there should be a specific purpose for your speech. So I wanted my audience to help everybody with whatever you have. It's not just about the card with money. With whatever you have, without expecting anything, just go ahead and help. That was the specific purpose. So you have to ask yourself, what do I want my audience to do after the speech gets over? So this is how you will measure your effectiveness and value. So when these things are clear, that is where it will become clear to your judges and they will score you on the content. And let me tell you, though I'm not going to explain, in today's world where you have advanced technology, ChatGPT, a lot of smart people here, we will definitely have a very strong content. You watch this year, people will come with some brilliant content thanks to ChatGPT. But the one who delivers the best will win. So along with your content, though delivery carries only 30 marks, please focus on the way you are going to present your speech. There should be something unique in your presentation to impress your judges. So that's from my side, and thank you. Back to the Toastmasters of the day.